So one of the things about whether it's the beginning of the year, the beginning of the quarter, or Jeff probably would tell you the beginning of the week, having goals is important. And I don't think anybody here got where they are without already knowing all that stuff. So Jeff's not about to tell us what a SMART goal is. But what's so interesting is when you talk with Jeff, he starts getting into, well, what's relevant now? And that's why his talk is identified as resetting goals. So with that, Jeff, I'm going to turn that over to you. And as soon as you're ready, Jeff, take the screen and take off. Mute. You're on mute, Jeff.
Thank you. For those who don't know me, think of me as the Kirby Smart for business owners. I work with teams, owners that are doing okay in their businesses, but they want to become national champions. And so I help them think differently about their businesses and ways to grow it so it becomes a national champion instead of a business that's doing just okay. So can you see these? Can you see the screen, Hal?
We're good.
All right, perfect. So Hal asked me to talk a little bit about resetting goals because this is the time of year, obviously, when we want to set goals. And you all probably, I don't need to go through these, why goals are important. For me, perhaps the most important one is that very first one. They set your direction, because you know we're all on a journey, aren't we? I mean, I think of goals as being a way to identify where I want to take my life. And I say life because we think about goals a lot of times, both for business and for personal. I really think of it as first establishing where I want to go, and then to build my business so it'll help me get there. So it's a journey we're on. And so often I find that people don't view it that way. They view it as being at work, running their business at a moment in time, rather than on a continuum that's going to take me from point A to point Z. And I was that way. I was in corporate America. I worked for Bank of America in Wachovia for 26 years. And I wasted easily half of that time because I didn't have a clearly defined direction, not direction, but a goal, a destination of where I wanted to go. And I was okay. Things were good. I was making good money. I was well regarded. So, you know, I'll stay where I am. But it was wasted time. And I think as soon as we start thinking about that, it becomes a journey. Then, of course, you need a map to help you get to your destination. And so that to me is where goals come into play. They're the map that take me or help me figure out how I want to get to my destination. And so once I have my map, it's just a matter of getting in the car and following the directions to get where I want to go. If I don't have a map, then I well, this road looks good. I'll take I-20 West, and I get out to I-20. Well, no, let's go back and go on. I don't know. I'm quickly showing my ignorance of interstates, but let's go back the other way, or let's go south. And I'm not going to any one spot in time because I haven't defined where I want to go, nor have I defined how I'm going to get there. So that to me is, in my mind, is the key thing about goals. And so I would suggest that when you're thinking about goals, broaden your perspective and think 3 years out, think 5 years out, and think about, if I want to own my own, if I want my business to be generating $10 million, I don't know what but if I want to be at 10 million and I'm at 1 million, what do I have to do in the next year to get me to 3 million, 4 million, whatever it is? And then you start thinking about, okay, so I want to be at 3 million next year. What do I have to do to get there? Which is very different than just picking an isolated point in time and trying to figure out, well, it'd be nice to have this or it'd be nice to have that. I think if you think of it as being on a journey, it's easier to understand the significance of setting those goals. I think it also helps you get more buy-in, internal buy-in to why I need to make these goals, because if I don't make these goals, my journey is delayed. I run out of gas. I have to stop and get gas. Well, that's going to mean I'm not going to get to my destination by 6 o'clock. It'll be 8 o'clock. So that's kind of, for me, really important to get clear on where you want to go, and then to consider the various roles that you play. Why do you think, why are roles so important? Why do we have to think about, why can't Mark just sit down and think about what goals he wants for his printing business? Any thoughts?
Put out the question again, Jeff, please.
All right. So to me, I think we also tend to have think about goals, my business goals, and maybe my personal goals, but that's it. And to me, setting goals is, you have to take your entire life in terms of all your roles, my spiritual roles, my family roles, my community roles, my health roles, my wealth roles. Those things have to come into play, because those things, as you're planning, are going to take time. And that's time that, if you look at your business goals without considering all the other roles you play, you're going to something's going to get shorted. Either you're going to spend more time in the business and you're going to miss your spiritual, you're not going to have family time, or you're going to spend more time with family and you're not going to build the business up clearly. Does that make sense to people? Do you have any comments about that? Do you do that now, or do you tend to think about business goals, personal goals, and others, and not really integrate them?
I do think it's important, just because you have to think about staffing. So what does it take? How many people do I need to hire so I can achieve those goals, and I can, allow myself to go to the gym and not be at my desk? So yeah, I think a comprehensive approach is the way to achieve your goals.
Yeah.
I think what I was going to add to that, Jeff, to add to Uli, because I think she's right too, is there's only so many hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard somebody make the comment that not just burnout, but the idea of sleeping 4 or 5 hours a day was no badge of honor. Medical people will tell you that 7, 6, 7, 8 is somewhere around that, what's right for you. And then if you're shorting that, so if you only have that many hours in a day outside after sleeping, what are you going to do with them? And I think you're right. You're both right that you got to split them between your personal, and your spiritual health and your work world.
I was going to add in too that I think that it's also of value to look at the previous year and see what worked and what didn't work, what you liked, what you didn't like, and help incorporate that for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Did you get a big sale, a once in a lifetime sale last year, and that's why your revenues were so high? And is it reasonable to think that you can repeat that again this year? I don't know. But you do need to take into account what happened last year. And then also, what obstacles are in the way? It's nice to sit back and think of, I'll make all these extra sales and set goals, but I forgot that, I don't have the right team. To Uli's point, I don't have the right team for it, or I haven't clearly defined my target market, or what's. So as you're thinking goals, also be realistic and think about, well, wait a minute, I don't have these things in place, and so I got to get them. That in turn could become a goal, to get a team, so that then I can start reaching for my outsized revenue goals. And mindset to me is a big piece of it. Determine what and why you want before you think how. Tell me, how do you read that? I mean, how does that fall on people? Or tell me what that means, or why that's important. Determine what and why you want before you think about how.
Well, one of the first things that comes to mind for me is a lot of times we'll see companies, they talk about their mission statement, and sometimes when we read it, it sounds like it's a marketing message, but for some organizations, it really is their purpose, and it's a way to unify all the team players. And certainly, if it's clear to the leadership and everyone working with the leadership of what the why is, there's more and more information, data to show that ultimately the results can be better for the clients and the people serving those clients.
Yep. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I think the what and why are the compass in your driving analogy, I guess, like you got to figure out what you want and why you want it. And that's the direction that you set off in. My business, for example, I might just say I want to make more sales, but what's my target market, like you said, to your point, or what's my motivation, really? I agree with that.
Have you ever found yourself thinking about a goal and then saying, no, wait a minute, I've never done that before. That's too high. I can't do that. So let's take that goal and let's cut it in half. And instead of getting 3 million next year, let's get 2 million or 1.5 million. And I find that, that happens a lot, that we dummy down our goals because we start interjecting how am I going to get that done? As opposed to setting the goal, believing in the goal, and then figuring out how to get it done. But that's the second step, right? You can't have that how influence the establishment of the goal, because you got the purpose of the goal is to get you, for you to then figure out how am I going to achieve that goal? I'm going to have to become better at what I do. I'm going to have to hire more people. I'm going to have to do better whatever it is. But as soon as we start thinking about how, at the same time we think about what my goal is going to be, I start thinking, whoa, man, that's a lot. I've never done that before. I can't do it. We start self-sabotaging. And a great example is years ago, we put an ad out for an executive assistant, $25,000 listed out the roles and responsibilities. 3 weeks later, we put out the same ad, same roles and responsibilities, but the salary was $250,000. Which one do you think got more responses?
It's in the lower one.
The lower one. The lower one got an overwhelming more response. The roles and responsibilities were identical, but people self-sabotage. They're saying $250,000. I'm down at 15,000. I can't do a $250,000 job. I'm not gonna apply for that job. The requirements were identical. And so I find that happens when we start thinking about goals. Geez, I can't make that kind of money. I can't do that. I've never spoken in front of people. Instead of saying, in order to achieve that goal, I'm going to have to learn how to be a better speaker. I'm going to have to learn how to hire people. I'm going to have to learn how to throw a 60-yard pass when my guy is covered and expect that he's going to be able to catch it. I don't know. But that to me is the importance of not thinking about how you're going to do it before you figure out what it is you want. How time-wise, am I about up?
Yeah, we've got we got time for a few questions and then we'll wrap up.
Oh, okay. All right. And I think Lee talked about the world is changing, and we have to make sure that we're flexible in what we think about. And just because it worked last year doesn't mean it's going to work this coming year. So each year, look at what's happening in your world and do you need to adjust goals upwards or downwards from prior years? I'm done.
So Jeff, and so we have time for a couple of questions for Jeff. And one I'd like to hear maybe from everybody really is, once you've got goals, what do you need to make them happen? Is it that accountability? Is it reporting? What is it that makes a goal more likely to be delivered? Wow, this is the participation part before we wrap up.
I'll start. I think, I guess to talk about the goals in general, I think that it makes sense to check in a couple of times a year, whether that's quarterly or otherwise. I find that if I can make myself accountable either to someone or something, that also helps me in terms of the motivation and keep going factor. So yeah, those are two things, I guess.
Anybody else? What makes your goals? Go ahead.
So Hal, one of the things that I do is, number one is I make sure that I have a life plan that matches or feeds into my business plan, my business strategy. And so if my life plan, then you have a nice, alignment there. But number one is writing those things down. You personally have mission and vision statements, and often as small businesses, they bleed into their company, into our companies as well. But I actually, the key for me is I write up the strategies and then I track them on a really a quarterly basis, but I have action items that I do every month to meet those strategic goals. So I love, which I bet a lot of people, I know a lot of you on this call, but I love to go back and say, I made this happen. I made, 9 out of the 10 things happen. I didn't make this happen because at the end of the day, it wasn't as important and it wasn't going to help me make that revenue goal. So I think writing down your personal life goals, aligning them with your strategic business goals, and then definitely holding yourself accountable with written check-ins every quarter is a great way to do it.
Good advice. Anybody else? What makes your goals successful? How do you keep to them?
I'll just say something quickly, kind of related to what Lori said. And it's one of the bullet points that Jeff has there about the unproven assumptions. So I have a notebook where I've written down stuff that I will probably forget, or I think I'll forget. But when I go back every once in a while, I look at it, I remind myself, oh, okay, we've already tried that. That approach didn't work. Why didn't it work? And in some cases, it allows us to redefine, okay, maybe this is this next type of approach that we're going to try. This is the right one. So it's a way to check and see, okay, sometimes it's going to take 100 tries for us to get the right, the right path that we want to be on. So it's just a way to see, okay, this is, we've already tried this and we need to try test a few more assumptions, just like they do in science, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great point.
Anybody else tips on how you're making your goals work for you? Obviously writing them down. What else? Anybody else got things that wow, this really helped me reach my goal or help me pursue? Jeff pointed out that goals are a journey more than whatever I did this week or this month or this quarter. So anybody else got tips for sticking to it, or staying along the map, along the journey?
I have an accountability partner that sees my written goals and objectives and initiatives, and then we meet monthly, and it's either good, bad, or mediocre, but you have to answer to someone other than yourself, and so it's counter. I do the same for him as well. So we're holding each other accountable.
Do you work? Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to ask, are you tough on each other, or are you just kind of, okay, you didn't get it done this week, try to get it done next week?
We're very tough. We went into it that, we're colleagues and friends, but, you have to draw the line. And at the end of the day, we're cheating ourselves if we give the other one a little bit of slack.
Yeah.
So, who are we fooling? So, and the most important thing that makes it work is that we both, and we put this in writing, in quotes, safe zone. Anything can be said without feeling of retribution or any type of caustic or toxic feedback. That you have to be totally vulnerable and get in that uncomfortable zone where what you will say won't be held against you, only will be held to make you better. And we all have our demons, right? So don't be embarrassed. If you're having a challenge, admit it. It's nothing wrong with that. And you're showing maturity if you're saying, I'm just weak in this area. I'm just really being challenged. That's okay.
Paul, is the colleague, when you use the term colleague, is this somebody that is either in the same company or has any financial responsibility to the other?
No, we're in totally two different industries, which is nice because we can inject a perspective that maybe not a common denominator in your business. And so it opens up ideas. Well, you know, I never thought that would work I'm in commercial real estate. I never thought that would apply to commercial real estate. And, you know, my accountability partner would say, don't be so fast, Paul, you know, think about it. You know, let that marinate over this for a while, how that could be applicable. And by the way, I apologize for being so late.
Well, not to worry. We appreciate your input now. We've got just a couple minutes, and I'm curious on your accountability meetings, though. I guess, how did you find each other? Because I think some other people here are listening to you, and there was a thumbs up on one of the screens. That it sounds like finding somebody that can be in a safe zone that's not in your business really has some merit. How'd you start that conversation?
Word of mouth through other people that I have relationships with. I just, you know, opened up and say, you know, I need a guardrail. I need someone to be a parent. As I parent two kids who are now out of the house, so now I want a parent. And then it's like, you know, it's a good idea. And just, you know, word of mouth travels, like, hey, I know this guy, Paul Mendel. And then, you know, you start talking, and then we met for coffee. And then I said, I'm a member of the Buckhead Club. Let's have lunch one day. So we had lunch there, which was nice. And by the way, our accountability meetings have gone back to in person because we find those more effective. The body language, the facial expressions, it's just better communication. So it's worked for me, and it's been a big help.
Good. All right. Well, we want to be respectful of everybody's time. Any other comments for Jeff or now for Paul? Another guest. Really good comments. Any other comments before we wrap up?
Thanks, Jeff, for the presentation. Very
So-
nice.
Always pleasure to see you. Thank
So
you.
before
I
we,
was going to mention that a business coach